Hi guys, I'm going to be reading this book today. It is called John Adams, the Second President. John Adams was the second president of the United States of America. He was born in Branton, Massachusetts in 1735 because he was cranky a lot of the time and kind of angry. John Adams wasn't the president. Although Adams was short-tempered and thought a lot of himself, he made good quality students. His friends, the people he worked with, and even his enemies always respected the Italians. Ignored his honesty and encouraged. Nothing could stop John Adams from fighting for freedom and American independence. John Adams, sitting at the table first on the left, was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. John Adams grew up on his parents' farm in Branton, Massachusetts. His grandfather, great-grandfather, his grandfather and great-grandfather, and a great-great-grandfather all have been farmers. John's parents always believed in the importance of education. They taught their son to read when he was very young. For my practice reading session today, you'll read some poetry by Shakespeare. I was hoping some Bible stories. Me too. John loved going to school at first, but when he was about 8 or 9, he started going to a large school. Things didn't go well for John and his new home. He can't stand it. John said his teacher, Miss Clevery, was the dullest, laziest man he ever knew. Mr. Clever taught only Latin. He didn't do a very good job of it. Okay, read every chapter in your book and wake me up when you're done. We'll have a test. Snore, snore, someday snore. John Adams felt that Miss Clever ruined his desire to go to school. In fact, John was so upset that he started skipping school altogether. John spent his day making and selling toy boats, flying kites, playing marbles, and hunting. John always enjoying the countryside and New Rocky seaside near Branton. John Adams was born in a red farmhouse in Branton, Massachusetts. When Mr. Adams found out what was going on, he was quite upset. He wanted John to get good grades so that he would be able to go to college. John told his father he didn't want to go to college and that he wanted to be a farmer. To change John's mind, Mr. Adams took him out early the next morning and made him do some of the hardest farming jobs. At the end of the day, Mr. Adams was so surprised that his son still wanted to be a farmer. John actually enjoyed the hard work. Well, John, I hope you learned your lesson. Yes, I'm sure I want to be a farmer. Finally, Mr. Adams convinced John how important a good education was. He agreed to send John to a new school. John liked his new school and teacher a lot. He began to enjoy studying and reading again. John Adams did so well in school that he got into Harvard College at the age of 16. Harvard was near the city of Boston, Massachusetts, where John Adams graduated. He decided to become a lawyer. Harvard College in the early 1700s. When John Adams began his career as a lawyer, Massachusetts was one of 13 colonies in North America that belonged to Great Britain. Great Britain was the most powerful kingdom in the world. It was headed by George III, King of England. For many years, people in the colonies got along pretty well with the British government. Suddenly, however, things started to go wrong. Happy birthday. Oh, George, it's beautiful. Where did you even get this money to afford it? Don't ask. The King of England needed more money for his country. He began forcing the colonists to pay extra fees for the supplies that were shipped from England to the colonies. These extra fees were known as taxes. John noticed that more and more people in the colonies were becoming annoyed. No one liked having to spend extra money on one thing they needed, such as sugar, tea, paint, lid, and silk cloth. Why is this stuff so expensive? Don't ask me. Ask King George about it. One tax law has colonies really was the Stamp Act. This act taxed almost every piece of paper in the colonies: newspapers, books, business documents, calendars, and even paying cards. These things are all had to be stamped to show that the tax has been paid. The extra money went to the English king. An example of the type of stamp forced on the colonies by the Stamp Act. John Adams was especially upset with the Stamp Act. He was married now and had a hard enough time supporting his wife, Abigail, and their new baby daughter without paying extra taxes. John Adams began to write articles in the newspaper how unfair the English government was being. Other colonies preferred to protest more violently, though. John Adams' friend Paul Revere created this illustration of the Boston Massacre. On March 5th, 1770, an angry mob attacked a group of British soldiers in Boston. The soldiers fired their guns into the ground and some colonists were killed. The event became known as the Boston Massacre. A portrait of Samuel Adams by John Sigel, Museum of Arts of Boston. The soldiers were fired into the crowd were in big trouble. No one in the colonies wanted to defend them in court. No one, that is, except John Adams. John Adams felt no matter how bad a crime scene, those who were accused always deserve a fair trial. John Adams took a big risk doing this. Some people called him a traitor. He agreed many of his friends, including Paul Revere and Samuel Adams, John's cousin, but many people thought John Adams did something very important. He had the courage to do the right and fair thing. A portrait of Paul Revere by John Singlet. Don Copel, Museum of Fine Arts, Boston. John Adams was becoming well known in Massachusetts and in the rest of the colonies. He was always being asked to run a community or take on some government job. John knew things were getting worse and worse between the colonies and England. One night, angry colonists threw tons of English tea off boats into the Boston harbor. An illustration showing the Boston Tea Party. Mind if I climb in? I was having a bad dream. They were tired of paying taxes on the tea. They teach colonies a lesson. King George III closed the harbor. He set thousands of soldiers to guard the area. He also demanded the colonies feed the soldiers and give them a place to sleep. Finally, the colonists decided that they had done enough. Before long, battles between British soldiers and the colonists broke out in the towns of Lexington and Concord, Massachusetts. Leaders of the colonies decided to break away from England and start a new nation. They made it official in a Declaration of Independence. John Adams was on the committee to help put the Declaration together. John had also nominated George Washington head of America's new army. The Revolutionary War has begun. And the Battle of Concord and Lexington, there was a quote that the first shots of the Revolution, and it was called the shot heard around the world. John Adams was asked to travel to France and asked for its help in fighting the British. John spent almost 10 years in Europe finding ways to aid his new American country. He eventually helped work out a peace agreement that ended the Revolutionary War. This is a map. John Adams' trip from England to America was about 3,520 miles and 37 feet. Soon after John Adams returned home to his brand new country, George Washington was elected the nation's first president. John Adams was elected vice president. 8 years later, after Washington's second term ended, John Adams was elected second president of the United States of America. When John Adams began his new job, he had all kinds of problems to solve. The most serious one was that France, which had once been a friend of the United States, started attacking American ships. They took cargo and arrested American sailors. United States ship battling a French ship in 1790. Some American warships began fighting back. Many people wanted to go to war with France, but John Adams thought it would be a big mistake. He just started up the U.S. Navy and knew it was ready for a big war, and knew it wasn't ready for a big war with a powerful nation like France. It wasn't long before people started to criticize the way President Adams was handling the French problem. To try to stop people from complaining so much, the president and his supporters did something that turned out to be a bad idea. They came up with and passed some new laws. One called the Ammunition Act said that anyone who criticized the government could be thrown in jail. To most people, the law seemed like something a king, not the president of the United States, might do. Last page. As a president, John Adams often did things only the way he wanted. Usually he wouldn't even listen to his friends' suggestions because of his stubbornness. John Adams wasn't popular enough to be voted in for a second term as a president. John Adams is best remembered for his courage and for the great ideas that helped make the 13 colonies into the United States of America. John Adams died at the age of 91 on July 4th, 1826, exactly 5 years after the approval of the Declaration of Independence. The portrait of John Adams by John Sickle. And a cool fact, on July 4th, 1826 is also when Thomas Jefferson died on the same year, same day. And I hope you guys had a great video. Click the like button and click the sub. Bye.